What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls? Joker back again, once again, and I would be lying if I didn't say I was worried about the longevity of Anthem. So my gut reaction from everything I've seen and played, and I think a lot of people will agree with me on this, is that Anthem really does feel like a dumbed down classical BioWare RPG, only forced to exist in the same space as Destiny and The Division and Warframe. And this is because EA no longer apparently sees the value of single-player only games. Because outside of EXP boosters and skins and cheat codes, things that used to come standard, they're not really long-term monetizable. And those things that I just mentioned, the EXP boosters, the skins, the cheat codes, it's generally stuff that when people see it implemented in a single-player game, it pisses everybody off. In a Destiny-esque multiplayer game, the practice of monetizing basically everything but the kitchen sink, and even then, is somehow more palatable. At least, generally speaking. So on top of things like that, on top of the fact that single-player games can be resold, and you'll get the same experience if you bought it used or you bought it new, publishers like EA and like Activision have been trying to figure out ways to create monetization platforms where they can maximize profit with minimum effort. And unfortunately, this monetization is almost never seen by the developer. It goes right to the publisher and the shareholders. So that myth that developers need microtransactions because game development is so expensive is, well, like I said, a myth. And let's be realistic for a moment. If publishers actually gave a shit about games and game development, then EA wouldn't be where studios go to die, and Activision wouldn't be laying off 800 developers after giving their new CFO $15 million. So let's not perpetuate this myth that microtransactions are necessary for the longevity of games. With a handful of very obvious exceptions like Warframe, it's not true. And while I'm sure most game developers want to put out the best product that they can, I think a lot of developers are shackled to what the publisher wants. Publisher wants something that's more monetizable, well, they're gonna get something that's more monetizable. That's not to say that developers are completely innocent in all of this. Some developers are ultimately the ones that do design systems to be very predatory and manipulative. But that's an entirely different conversation for another day. Everything I've seen and read and played of Anthem leads me to believe that Anthem would make one hell of a single-player, third-person action RPG, but that it's going to release as a mediocre entry into this shared world genre populated by games like Warframe, Destiny, and The Division. And this mediocrity has less to do with the potential of the game in and of itself, and more to do with the limitations presented by this shared world genre. So yeah, while the story could have great characters, great set pieces, and a fantastic plot, and I think it'll be handled way better than Destiny storytelling ever was, because love their stories or hate their stories, storytelling tends to be where BioWare excels. It's after that story mode where things get a little sketchy and long-term viability gets called into question. So when it releases, Anthem will have a story mode, free play, and strongholds. The story mode, if I was being completely honest, is probably the part I'm most excited about. I know that's kind of weird in a looter shooter, but it's also a BioWare story mode. And I'm really interested to see how they implement it in a shared world environment. And while free play looks like it's going to be doing a lot of interesting things with the open world, we are realistically limited to a couple hundred miles of airspace around Fort Tarsis. So we don't have different biomes that we can really go in and explore. And then there's Strongholds, the activity that's basically being touted as the mid and endgame of Anthem. If my information is correct, Anthem will release with 3 strongholds, but only one of them will be available per week. And the only difference between the early and mid-game versions of Strongholds and the end to late game versions of Strongholds is difficulty settings. And all the difficulty settings seem to do is increase the damage output and health pools of enemies. And of course, these higher settings grant you better loot, which is kind of the point of a looter shooter. That said, 3 Destiny-like strikes with difficulty modifiers was the best they could come up with for an endgame. I mean, realistically, at least Destiny 2 released with 6 strikes and a raid. Anthem only has 3 strikes, and you can only play one of them each week, and that's the endgame. And you got difficulty settings, and that's it. Really, BioWare? Come on, guys. We all know you can do so much better. I mean, don't get me wrong, 3 strike-like activities would be okay for early to mid-game, and difficulty settings would of course keep this content relevant. The problem here, however, is when your mid-game content is also your endgame content. We'll use Destiny as an example. This would be like playing the same 3 strikes over and over and over and over, so you could play harder versions of the same 3 strikes over and over and over and over and over, so you could play even harder versions of those same 3 strikes over and 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 over. And to be fair, that is kind of what we do. However, there are the raids, which is the penultimate piece of endgame content for Destiny, and it's the main reason why people do a lot of this repetitive content, so they can be geared up so they are ready to tackle this endgame content. But when your endgame content consists solely of just more difficult versions of the same content you've been grinding through already, so you could just play the endgame content, you've kind of missed the point of endgame content. Ideally, endgame content would be a new experience, not the same experience I've been grinding over and over and over and over and over and over again already. I think that's sort of the delineation between Destiny and Anthem. In Destiny, there is this castle on the hill that you want to take, and you do all the content required for you to be ready to do that. In Anthem, there doesn't seem to be a castle on the hill to take. You're basically just Sisyphus, grinding content just so you could grind harder versions of that content to grind even harder versions of that content. Really? To me, that's really just not all that compelling. If I had to boil down my concerns to what I've seen and what's been reported, it would be that, and perhaps call me jaded, but the endgame of Anthem does come off as BioWare going, how can we do something really cheaply with the assets and technology that we have and not invest more than we absolutely have to? And the real endgame, the true endgame of Anthem is, well, like Destiny 2's endgame when it first released. The cash shop. Now, some of you might see this as alarmist, and some of you might be typing feverishly in the comments below, "But Joker, the game's not even out yet, wait and see." Okay, but follow me for a second, just for the sake of argument. It's easy to want to defend something that's new and exciting and full of hype, just like it's easy to want to tear something down that's EA or BioWare, because neither one has been stellar in the past couple of years. But with all of that said, I actually do have hope. If Anthem comes out in a less than stellar state, as these games seem to do. Look at Division, look at Warframe, look at Destiny 1 and 2. First, I hope it won't be that bad. Second, I hope the developers aren't as slow as some of these other developers were when it comes to actually fixing the game. BioWare has been really open about some things and really sketchy about others, like microtransaction pricing, but they've also shown that they have a want to listen to their community, the one that they're building, the one that they're trying to get from other communities. If you want proof of this, look no further than the social space that they decided to implement, where friends can be in the same social space. That wasn't originally going to be an Anthem, and yet people wanted it, so they put it in. That's extremely commendable of them, and it shows a willingness to listen to the community, which is very important. Probably the most important aspect of developing one of these types of games. Because if your game is built on being a community-driven game, and you don't listen to your community, you don't have a game. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. And like always, stay frosty.
silence. I think we're... What was that?
It came from below.
Of course it did.
Hate to say it, but that thing is probably what's producing the eggs. If we don't get rid of the source...
The scars will come back and keep making weapons. Faye, find me a way underground.
Already done. Underground.
Why is there a door to a cave?
To keep something out?
Or in.
Did you just yell?
The big bad Corvus agent's not a fan of scorpions.
What? They're not rabbits. Their likability isn't up for debate.
Wow. It's almost peaceful down here.
Scorpions can't swim, right?
Don't worry, Sev. I won't let them get you.
You know what they say? You've got to crack a few eggs to make an omelette.
I don't want that omelette. What is that?
Another relic. Careful, freelancer. It's unstable.
I hate it when they do that.
What do we do now?
Gather the fragments and silence the relic.
Heads up, scars incoming.
How'd they get down here?
Bastards love to borrow.
Almost done. Only a few fragments left.
Hey, freelancer.
More stars, I know.
He's looking extra powerful.
Hey, door's still closed and there's nodes everywhere.
Give it a minute, it should work itself out. Energy readings are stabilizing, albeit slowly. Just stay in the center, any interference will cause the energy to spike again.
I don't think our friend liked that.
Too bad. I'm just getting started.
It got quiet.
Bet it'll stay that way.
It's pretty dark in here.
Throw down a flare. It'll help.
You freelancers have tools for everything.
Back into the deep.
Oh, that's just wrong.
Remember? It's only a scorpion, but bigger.
A lot bigger.
You're not helping.
It would be unprofessional to cut the link, right?
Highly.
Damn it.
Next time, I expect big-ass bugs to be in the mission briefing.
You'd have to show up for that to help.
Is unnerving.
I wonder how many years it will take me to forget that thing.
I'm gonna go with 8. 1 for each of the tyrant's legs.
No more scorpion talk, please.